Hi, welcome to the August 20th, 2018 meeting of the North Brookfield School Committee. This meeting is being recorded by North Brookfield LPAC. If there is anyone present who is also recording this meeting, please raise your hand so others are aware. Okay, so moving on to our first item is we have several minutes to approve. The school committee budget workshop from June 12th, 2018, the school committee regular meeting of June 18th, 2018, school committee special meeting of July 19th, 2018, and school committee executive session of July 19th, 2018. Does anyone have any comments or additions?
Motion to approve the school committee budget workshop minutes from June 12th, 2018, school committee regular meeting of June 18th, 2018, school committee special meeting of July 19th, 2018, and school committee executive session of July 19th, 2018.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I don't believe we have any correspondence, and we don't have any presentations. So we want to welcome our newest representative from the Student Advisory Council. So Christina Ayat, right? Okay. Welcome, Christina.
Good evening. I wanted to start off by introducing myself. I'm Christina Ayat, and I've been a member of Student Council for about 5 years now. I decided to run for the position of LSAC last minute, actually, at our last Student Council meeting. We didn't have anyone running for the position, so I was nominated to run, and so I kind of went up, wung a speech, and somehow I pulled it off and won. So now I'm here, and I'm very passionate about Student Council, and I wanted to make it the best it possibly could be. So yeah. Now onto the report. As for upcoming events, on August 24th, we will be helping Mr. Evans run the 7th grade orientation. This is a great opportunity for incoming 7th graders to get a feel of what it is like to be in the high school. So the orientation is from 8 a.m. until noontime, and in those 4 hours we will be showing the students where their classrooms are, how to get to them, and just giving them some helpful tips on the teachers. We will also be giving some helpful information on lockers, giving them 30 minutes to try and figure it out, and there'll be a bunch of student council members walking around helping them figure it out, because we all know that's a hassle first. So yeah, this orientation is just a great way to make sure this incoming 7th graders are comfortable and they're really prepared for the school year. So the last event that we're going to be talking about is the back to school breakfast on August 31st. Student council members will be making breakfast for the entire staff. And we thought that this would be a great way to, sort of welcome them back from the summer and just show our appreciation for them. So yeah, that's all I have for tonight. I'd like to thank the members of the school committee for having me, and I'm really looking forward to this school year. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you very
Christina.
much.
Nice job, Christina.
Can I just ask you real quickly, how do you spell your last name?
IOT. I-O-T-T.
Oh, it is IOT.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So we have public participation. We don't have any school committee reports. Moving on to always the fun stuff, financial report.
So just a couple of things. Obviously, we're just getting everything set up. Sheila has been working very hard to get all the different grants and the school local budget into the system. And from there, we'll be able to produce the regular reports that you see. Like at any point in terms of salaries, that's the big unknown right now as we bring people on. There are pluses and minuses. But things are proceeding. Sheila has already asked me to freeze the budget because that's her role.
Yes, that is her role. Yes.
And she's really good at it. In terms of the grants, we did get our allocations for the different federal grants. Title I, we went down about $7,000 down to about 80,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were 86, 87 last year.
And so why is that just as a greater?
It's the federal government
Right.
and the way they, how much money they put aside in the federal budget for it, and then how they allocate it. it's been going down over the, the last several years across the board.
But that's schools nationwide.
Nationwide, yeah. Title II, so Title I is based, the way they figure the allocation is based on students who receive free and reduced lunch. But the total amount available is based on what Congress
Right.
appropriates.
Right.
So then they'll split it up based on their formula and what percentage of students you have that take advantage of free and reduced lunch.
Right.
And it's about building programs to support all students. So it's not about building programs for kids who are or receive free and reduced lunch. It's about building programs across the board. Great majority of our Title I money is staffing. Mrs. Pratt and Mrs. Simpson. Their salaries, to a large degree, not totally, are covered by Title I.
And they're the reading specialist and the Title I tutor, and so they focus on reading and literacy.
Yeah, absolutely. The remainder of the money is around professional development in teaching, reading, and math. So Teachers for Teachers money, supporting professional development in math this year. So that's where the majority of the Title I money, if not all of it, goes. In terms of Title IIA, that went from about $20,000 down to $14,000. In some ways, that feels like a win, because Title IIA was the professional development grant, federal grant, that the administration wanted to eliminate completely. So having money in there is good, but losing about a third of it was not good. So 20 down to 14. That is about it's called the Teacher Quality Grant, and it's all about professional development. So supporting professional development needs.
And that's another federal grant?
Yep. And then Title IVA is, I kind of call it the catch-all grant. It's a relatively new grant. It was about $2,000 last year. It's $6,000 this year. It can be used for just about anything, from buying technology to supporting the arts to health and wellness, student health and wellness. There's just a variety of things it can be used for. Now, going up $4,000 after losing, I don't know, whatever it was, $14,000 in the other grants, doesn't feel great, but I guess it could be worse, and that could have been either flat or reduced too.
Yeah.
You call that Title IV-A?
Title IVA, yeah. It's relatively new. It came out maybe last year was the first year. It was introduced 2 years ago. And, the focus this year is really on a couple of different things. One is, so AP testing. Students who receive free and reduced lunch need to pay for AP testing. That's one of the uses that's described in the grant, to allow kids who may not be able to afford to take the AP test to be able to pay for that test. We're going to give the opportunity for kids to take the PSATs as in 10th grade,
Yep.
right? And then we're going to focus on district-wide social emotional learning. We're going to have PBIS is more of a district-wide focus. We're looking to have a stipend.
Just one more time.
Yep.
PBIS means?
Positive behavior interventions and supports. It's about working with the staff to create common language and approaches to working with kids in a positive way. And that might look like, so school-wide expectations might include the way that we walk in the hallway. PBIS really talks about positively reinforcing kids for doing it the right way, rather than quote-unquote consequencing or punishing kids for not doing it the right way. So the focus is really creating ideas about saying, I like the way, Maria and Meg are walking in the halls, not Jean and Bill need to do a better job. It's all about a positive approach. It doesn't mean kids can't get consequences, which sometimes people get lost on. It's about making sure we're also always pointing out what kids are doing right. And so that's just a small example of what that might look like. And they've really implemented that sort of in the more stereotypical way here at the elementary school. But the high school has implemented PBIS through the advisory, which is a much more common approach at a high school level, and through student-led conferences and the student senate that they're establishing, giving kids voice. So the money that we're going to use out of Title IV is going to be really to enhance those programs and make sure that they're, working the right way, and that there's consistency grade to grade, school to school, and how we're approaching this. And it should be, in fact, a group of teachers just finished a lot of work this past week with Jean, and I sat in on some of it, and it was just fantastic, the work they were doing in planning in terms of implementation. So some good stuff happening, and people will see that, not only the staff and the kids, but parents as well. So more to come with that. So that's really the meat of it. We've already submitted our special education grants. We were approved, if you remember, at the end of last year for the kindergarten grant. And our 240 grant fell, which is our special education grant, fell by, I think, $2,000 from $142,000 to $140,000, something like that. So that went down as well. And so that's the concern over the long term, is these federal grant programs are slowly sort of eroding, and less money is being put into those. So every time we lose $1,000, the costs aren't going down, they're actually going up. We have to find money to support needs, whether it's Title I, or Title IV, or Title II, or a special education grant. There is a Title III grant that we don't participate in, because it's all about teaching kids who might be English language learners, kids whose first language isn't necessarily English, or English isn't spoken at home. We just don't have enough kids. You need a minimum number of kids to be able to apply, and we don't have enough. So that's kind of the update on the grants. Local budget, like I said, is ongoing. It's early in the year, so everything's good now unless you ask Sheila. So I would say don't ask her.
Don't ever. One of the things that we were able to do is keep a small grant writer position to try and access any other future grants moving forward, right?
Yep, so the grant writer was posted, and we got an application, and probably to no one's surprise, Jay Mooney, who we brought back, applied and was a successful candidate. Now, again, not surprising, since Jay held that position. Now, it's a small number of hours right now. So, it's only 3 to 4 hours a week. But given Jay's history and grant expertise, and if he gets one grant, he's going to pay that salary. If he gets a good grant, he's going to more than pay that salary. As we talk through the year, a couple of things you'll hear, and you'll hear it in my next update, is around safety and STEM. Those are two big idea topics that we're going to focus on this year. And I've asked Jay, as he's looking at grants, thinking about grants, to focus on STEM and safety.
Right.
There's a lot of potential for funds through grant money, especially in those two areas.
Okay, that's great.
Moving on to your report.
So, a couple things. The first one is, after finishing up my first year here, I wanted to kind of reflect on the year and kind of put some of those thoughts down on paper, and also think about the upcoming year, and again, kind of put those to paper and talk a little bit about them. In terms of reflecting on last year, I think it was a really successful year, but with a lot of challenges. And one was obviously in my office, the fact that We transitioned, I think, the day before school started.
Yes.
So hitting the ground running was probably not in the cards. There was probably a large learning curve for a lot of the staff and students and parents and the community to just know who I was and for me to know what was going on to some level. So, a very important step, and it will always be a goal of mine, whether it's an official goal or just an ongoing, is around communication. I think we did a fantastic job last year of really taking that first step in excellent communication, which is getting information out to people. And we can continue to improve that. It's more of a journey than a goal. That we'll always be working on communication. But in terms of going into next year, if I think about this year and beyond, it's about two-way communication, not just telling people what's happening so that they can sort of consume it, but also engaging them in conversations about things that are working, things that aren't working, who has talents and other areas of expertise that they can bring into our schools. So what can we do to join them outside the school in some way? So that's really a huge, ongoing, never-ending piece to what I will always bring, or try to bring, in any role that I have. I learned very early when I first set up an email group as a principal, and I did an end-of-the-year survey, and we've done an end-of-the-year survey, and you'll see the results in September, to have probably 90% of the people say, the best thing you ever did was start this email weekly update. And that started in 2002 and hasn't stopped. I continue it here. And again, I still hear that. And that just shows how much people want to know what's going on.
That is definitely the number one thing we hear.
Absolutely.
Positive, absolutely.
So in terms of, again, reflecting, a second area was operationalizing goals and objectives. Our district had plans, but we never really had articulated in writing what it would look like. So whether it's our district improvement plan or bullying prevention and intervention or other plans, we have a goal and objectives, but we never really outline how are we going to accomplish that? When are we going to accomplish that? Who's going to be responsible for that? What are the resources? So we really worked hard on trying to operationalize goals that and objectives with benchmarks and how is this going to get done so that we have evidence that we've done it and that we've completed it, or that maybe it's morphed into something else because we found something different was the better way to go. And I think to the report I attached that, did I? I hope I did. Maybe I didn't. No, I didn't put it in there. But I think it was in your, maybe in your packet, but if not, I can get you all those, that information. But it's really important to operationalize all these great ideas that we have, so that we know what will happen, when it will happen, how it will happen, who's going to be doing what, how are we going to pay for it, what do we need? Do we need time? Do we need other resources, people, expertise, etc.?
So you mean you make concrete steps, essentially, right?
Yeah, it's really about concrete steps and putting things in place and plans in place that outline action steps. What are we going to do? Not just the idea, but the actual way we're going to accomplish it. And you'll see that in the preview, you go to program building. Real focus of what I believe in is about building programs. I don't believe in, I'm going to say this, and I know some people will lose their mind, and it's okay. I don't care about MCAS scores. I know a lot of people do, and MCAS scores have value. They do. They're a data point. They're a moment in time that give us information, just like a teacher giving a quiz or a test or having kids write a paper or create a project, but they don't define who a kid is or the value of a teacher or how good a school or a district is. If we build great programs, however we choose to assess it, it will be good if we build a great program. So if you want to use MCAS scores as a measure, we build a great program, those will improve. If we build a great program, maybe other data like student attendance or graduation rates or kids going to college or discipline data, or all the different things we use to measure will be improved. But they're never going to improve to a point where we go, oh, we're satisfied. So it's always, again, a journey. So my message to the staff this coming Monday, next Monday, will be about building a great program. I want people to think outside the box. What have they seen? What have they read? Research. Other things that say, hey, we've never done it this way, but I've seen it in action, or I've read about it, or I've taken a course, or, all right, let's explore that. Maybe we can do it a different way. Because I think if we continue to do it the same way, we're probably going to get the same results. And the results aren't bad, but we want to continuously get better. Again, I would say that the results aren't bad, and that's not based on MCAS alone or any other one specific measurement. It's more of a holistic view. I think kids leave our schools, I think, mostly ready for the next step in life. I think they leave each grade level mostly ready for the next step in their life. So a 5th grader, I think, is ready for 6th grade. A 7th grader is ready for 8th. A 12th grader is ready for whatever happens in their post-secondary. The majority, and we want to continue to improve that. And then lastly, I think it's about reflecting. It was about getting to know the community of me. I'm the outsider. I'm the one who has to do the work to learn the people, the community, the programs, the organizations. That's my job. And if I do that, people will get to know me. And I think it was a good first step. And again, there's a lot more work to do. And we'll continue to do that in terms of getting to know the community.
We definitely appreciate you coming back here on weekends. You have a little bit of a commute, and certainly it takes away from your family time, and we appreciate that.
Well, I think it's part of having a successful district. It's not going to work if we're not all in. So I'm certainly all in on this. The last thing I was thinking about moving forward is really about personalizing learning. Education needs to change, not just us. The learners of today aren't the same learners that existed 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. Unfortunately, and I attended the superintendent's conference, and there was a quote from Scott McCloud, who's sort of this educational guru, and he said, it's unfortunate that we have a 19th century curriculum, 20th century buildings, and 21st century learners. And then he followed up with a statement, never has a generation been more prepared for the Industrial Revolution than this one. Unfortunately, the Industrial Revolution is long gone. And in a lot of ways, he's right. The same courses that my parents took, who are 80, still exist today. Now, are there some different courses? Yes, but the core curriculum essentially has remained unchanged since the Industrial Revolution began. The way classrooms are set up. How did he describe it? The book we read, Eric Scheninger, looks like a cemetery. All the desks are in rows, like a very well-organized cemetery, like gravestones. We have to change how we do education to fit the learners of today, not the learners of yesterday, me. That's what I grew up with. So
I saw this quote earlier this week. So,
yeah.
Do not confine your children to your own learning, for they were born in another time.
Yeah. So I think that's what, again, a message that I'm going to give to the staff is don't design units and lessons for what you're good at. Design them for what the kids need them for. If you set up lessons the same way for the past 5, 10, 20, 30 years, it's time to rethink it. Doesn't mean it's wrong, but there might be a better way. Maybe someone's doing something a little bit different that's having that's engaging kids differently, that's pushing them to think differently. So that's going to be the message, is we have to do it differently because the kids that we have in front of us are different. It's just the way it is. So personalized learning is sort of that new approach. Technology has certainly made that more possible, but we can't personalize learning for kids unless faculty and staff know what that looks like. So a focus this year is really personalizing learning for our adult learners, teachers and staff, so that they understand what personalized learning means. Because so many times our staff is used to having professional learning done to them. You come to a PD day, and I know the parents love PD days where the kid stays home. It's a pain in the neck, I know, but the idea of coming and having something done to you rather than you having choice as a teacher or an instructional assistant or a secretary or a cafeteria worker or a custodian, and focusing on areas that, one, maybe you're interested in, two, that you want to know more about, that because you're not maybe as good in that area. And that's really the focus this year, is to change professional learning so that the teachers and staff own it. It's areas of interest, areas of need, guided by our administrators, but there's a lot of choice. We have teachers at our high school, I think 11, Mr. Evans, that have chosen project-based learning. Is that what we spoke about? So they're going to be spending a good portion of the year learning about how to implement project-based learning with their students. We've engaged with a company called the Master Teacher. Our instructional assistants and ABA folks are going to be able to choose online courses and be able to go at their own pace and take things that are important to them, areas that they need, rather than, again, a one-size-fits-all approach. So it's really important that we personalize learning for our students, but to do that, our staff needs to know what that looks like. And in the end, my goal is for us to be the best school district in the country. However you want to define that, that's what my goal is. Is it a little ambitious? Probably, but that's where I would like us to go. And it'll be the ongoing journey. It's like my golf game, it'll never be good enough.
Always want to be a little better.
Right?
Yep, you gave me a little time. I probably have a quote about that too.
Yeah.
But I don't.
I think this is a great update. It's great to know kind of what you're thinking and direction and messages that you're going to be giving to the faculty and all of the staff. I know I feel like I'm preach this, but the school safety is a big issue, and I'm glad that we're going to be able to pursue that and work with police and fire in the town and
Absolutely.
really kind of work on that and solidify that. So
I skipped past that, didn't I, Mrs.?
no.
Did I?
Actually,
little
you
bit?
did. Why
A little bit.
don't you go back just real quickly, because that is something I think that a lot of parents are very concerned with.
So,
Yeah.
in terms of a
Yeah.
preview, and I'm sorry I missed that, I kind of
It's okay.
did a bunch of things in different order.
Yep.
Yep.
You know, the world we live in, as I just said, isn't the same one we grew up
No.
in, and unfortunately, on the one end, there's a lot of positives. Unfortunately, there are a lot of negatives. And, you know, we've all saw or seen horrible things happen in different schools across the country, and everybody says it can never happen here, and I think that has shifted over the last, you know, maybe a couple of years, that we all worried that it could happen anywhere.
Yep.
So over the next few months, you might see some changes here in our school district. We're going to be updating our crisis intervention plan, emergency plans, working with the police and the fire to make sure the EMS, emergency management, also, you know, other school districts, to make sure that our crisis plans are up to date. Everybody knows what they need to do, how they need to do it. For parents out there, you might hear the word ALICE. I know it's a name, but it's actually an acronym in this case. ALICE stands for, I believe, Alert, Lockdown, Information, Counter, and Evacuate. It's a program that was developed by law enforcement that sort of replaces the old lockdown system. So when there was maybe a school shooter or other emergency, teachers and staff in the past have been taught to lock the doors and hide under desks. And what law enforcement is telling us about those horrible events is that's not the best thing to do. It might have some part, you heard in Alice, the L is for lockdown. But also the idea is to get out of there if we can. And so we'll be training our staff in our August and Surface days on Alice. In the recent update I sent out today, there is a link in the letter that I wrote that I talk about Alice, and you can click on that link and it brings you to the Alice organization so you can find out more about it. But we're going to be practicing things that are scary. You know, from our littlest learners to our oldest students and to our faculty and staff. It's not a fun conversation, but it's a necessary conversation to plan for the worst and hope for the best. So we'll be planning for the potential of a horrible situation with the idea that if God forbid it ever happened, we would be prepared to deal with it as best we can. Mr. Evans and Mr. Glazier are Alice trained, and so is our police chief and members of his staff, so they will be providing, the police and our administrators will be providing the professional development during our August and Service days. And that won't be the only time we do it. We will be practicing with kids. So we'll start with practicing with the staff, and then we'll practice with the kids. What it means to deal with that horrible potential.
There's a book that goes along with it, because I remember classroom teachers at our school had to read it. It was like called I'm Not Scared, I'm Prepared. That goes along with the Alice training, kind of like introduces the kids to you know, if you're in this situation, you know, here's kind of what could happen. I don't know if that might be something you'd be interested in.
And it's something that, you know, again, from a parent's perspective, I'm a parent, I don't want to hear that, but I'm really glad that my kid's school did that. You know, and we were prepared to do it, we just hadn't implemented it, and we're implementing now. You know, obviously, folks were trained, so now it's implementation.
So just curious, so I know when they do the fire drills at the beginning of the year, I think they usually tell the kids, we're going to have a fire drill. So is this going to be the same sort of thing? Will there be preparation?
Yep.
We're going to practice this. And in particular, a fire drill, that's normal for parents.
Yeah.
In this particular situation, with this kind of drill, is it something where you will, ahead of time, you let the parents know we're going to be doing it this week?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll let them know, you know, what it is, what we'll be doing, because part of it is lockdown. Part of it is actually actively, they call it counter, and some people think that's fighting back, and it might be, but it's also making it more challenging for someone there to do harm, to get at people, you know, from barricading doors. We need to practice that. What does that look like? To evacuate. And that doesn't mean walking outside and waiting outside. It means going to a location somewhere else off campus. Parents may want to know. We're not going to share that information. It's part of our emergency plans that I would, you know, I can't divulge out to
Don't
the
want them
public.
wrong hands.
Because anybody who's here to do harm would also have access. So please know all these plans are being revised and updated, and all these things are being thought of. It's not that we're doing it from scratch. We're learning from other districts and from our police and fire partners. You'll see some other things, like we're looking at enhanced video systems, hallways and other entrance areas of video. We're looking at improving the front door here, the walk-in door, the buzz-in door for parents. So there may be some changes that you notice. There may be some changes you don't notice, but they are all in an effort to improve safety.
Well, and just one point, I don't think you went over, you know, all of this stuff is very important, but also the proactive programs that you mentioned here at the bottom, so working with kids, that's the social emotional learning aspect of it, so hopefully.
Yeah, and there's, you know, those things and typical safety things. So last year at the end of the year, we were able to replace all our AEDs. So those are defibrillators if someone on campus had a cardiac issue. Ours were old. We've purchased a communication tool to allow for immediate, from anywhere in the district, communication between and among classrooms, administrators, police, and fire through the dispatch. It's called Enforce 911, and it allows anybody in district, eventually, we have to work up to that, train people, to be able to let first responders know if there's an emergency. And it lets everybody else in district know without having to run down the hall, without having to pick up the phone. You actually can click either on a mobile device or computer, and it immediately ties you into an officer in a car, the dispatch, the chief, administrators, other classrooms. It's a tremendous tool that other districts have purchased, and we've gone with that. I have some experience with it in another district. It's fantastic. And so school safety is certainly a huge piece of the puzzle this year in terms of focus areas.
We were able to use some grant funding to be able to supply some of those things, right?
Yep, absolutely.
some
And
come
continue to
with a
look for
good
some more
price tag.
grant money to fund more of it so that we
Okay.
can put everything in place.
Very good.
That's it. You want me to hit
School
the,
opening.
keep going?
Yeah, no, keep going, yeah.
So school opening, we're getting there. We
And it
have-
is the 29th.
It is the 29th. I have to update. I told Mr. Evans, I cannot write my updates at 10 o'clock on Sunday night.
Not a good idea.
So I will send out an update, a corrections thing tomorrow morning, not tonight, because again, I'll probably.
Yeah, right.
Late.
I'll put August 32nd or something, for our first day, something like that. So we're still in the hiring mode. We have a few positions still left. Unfortunately, another one was added today. We had a resignation. Special education teacher got a job in a district a little bit closer. So this is sort of part and parcel of this time of year, unfortunately. You know, the comings and the goings, but we have a few things left to do in terms of hiring. You saw the building updates. Teachers are starting to come in, you know, more regularly.
Yep.
Our opening 2 days are set. We have a schedule. I think I forwarded that to you as well, so you get a sense of what we'll be doing and working on. One of the things I wanted to mention in terms of staffing. So, one of the positions that I wanted to give you an update on was our BCBA. So BCBA stands for a Board Certified Behavior Analyst. And that is a person who works with, again, some of our most challenging students to develop plans to support kids in classroom environments, uses data to really support how to do things. They do a lot of training, they do a lot of modeling for staff, especially in applied behavior analysis. And if that goes with ABA, which are our staff that we hire, our paraprofessional staff, who can work with many of our students who sometimes struggle the most. We had a consultant that has worked with us for several years, Teresa Taylor. Teresa has her own company and came to a point where she had established such a private clientele who in need of home services that she will not be returning to. She informed me last week that she won't be able to support students here. Now that's rather late in the year to find another consultant. So one of the things we looked at was, again, trying to think outside the box. How do we do this? We had Teresa for 3 days a week. So what we did was we looked at an ABA position and the money that we paid Teresa as a consultant, combine those two things, and we're going to hire a special ed teacher who is a BCBA. Doing it this way we get someone in full-time with a level of training that's well beyond, that's the same as Teresa's, for 5 days a week, to support elementary and high school, obviously. Again, having experience as a principal and as a director of curriculum and as a superintendent, a really good BCBA is worth their weight in gold, what they can bring to the district. From consults with teachers to to conducting assessments, to modeling and coaching staff, working with kids directly who are struggling. Finding a great BCBA is, again, worth its weight in gold, and to have someone here 5 days a week is very much worth it. So we put out an anticipated opening, and we've already got applicants, and we have some interviews coming up. But the idea of moving away from the consultant approach to having someone on staff, I think is a better long-term approach. Teresa obviously has her own company, and I'm happy for her to move on and do great things, but it puts us in a tough spot. If she had said, yes, I can work in North Brookfield, but I can only be there 1 day a week, or, you know, or without 5 days a week, I can't continue. You know, she runs her own company. She decides, you know, who and how she's going to work. So that's challenging when we have kids and staff who need that type of support. And so my, again, thinking outside the box, trying to come up with a solution that is a better way to go than just doing it the same way we always have, was to hire a teacher who's board certified as a BCBA, and own their time for 5 days a week to really support growth of our programs. So that's an important shift that I wanted to make you aware of, and certainly if you have questions or concerns about it, Monique and I can try to answer those for you. But
so essentially we combined two positions, the ABA and the BCBA, and
yeah.
Now we have that one person servicing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that something that's typical in a smaller
In terms of a
district?
BCBA, or combining?
Combining.
Well, in the end, the money's all coming from the same place, and you know, we can't print more. I wish we could. I wish we could have, you know, both a BCBA and another ABA. But I think the level of skill a BCBA brings for 5 days a week far outweighs having
An ABA. Yeah.
For 5 days a week, and the consultant
For part-time.
for 3 days. And in fact, the money that was budgeted would only cover about 100 days for
The
Teresa.
consultant.
So that's less than 3 days a week. It would
Okay.
be, you know, on those days we have 4-day weeks, or, you know,
Right.
multiple days off, she
Yep.
would only come twice.
Right.
But, what if it's a day she doesn't come and we have a really difficult situation that would be perfect to have the BCBA here to help solve, but they're not scheduled to be here. So I think having someone 5 days a week is really important for program building, continuity, support for our staff in terms of training, et cetera.
Okay.
All right, moving on, in terms of school roof project, which is part of the open. As I informed you last Friday, and if you've driven on campus, you know the roof will not be done by the time we open. It was certainly an aggressive schedule to start, but when we got a month straight of 95 degrees and humid, the roof was about 125 degrees. They couldn't work on, and they were stopping work at about 1:30, 2 o'clock because it just got too hot, literally dangerous hot. And then over the last several weeks, we've had rain, which when you're doing a roof project is significantly challenging. So last Tuesday, we had a building meeting, and we meet every Tuesday with the contractor and the other the project team. And we established a new schedule. And I put it in here, finishing the gutters and fascia by the end of August, completion of the roof material by mid-September, and then the wall panels and sunshades by the end of October. This was done with the idea that there are no, we won't accept weather delays as a reason for them not finishing. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that weather impacted them, so it's weather and contractor issues. The weather causes contractor issues, because when you have a subcontractor planning on coming tomorrow, but you had rain today, you didn't get the work done that you needed to get done for the contractor to do their work, and then the subcontractor has other jobs. So they leave and they come back at their own schedule. Giving them this basically month extension is part and parcel of these types of big projects, but also was a compromise on our side to say, we get it, but we're giving you an extra month when you really probably had 2 to 3 weeks of delays. If the contractor does not finish on these dates, our contract with them allows us to charge liquidated damages, which is a $1,000 penalty per day that they don't finish. So I've been very clear with the contractor that if by September 17th, which is the substantial completion date of the roof is not done, not the wall panels, not the sunshades, if the roof is not completed by September 17th, you will be getting a $1,000 a day liquidated damages charge. Essentially, they won't write us a check, we just won't pay them. So if it's 5 days, it'll be $5,000. If it's 20 days, it's $20,000. We won't be paying them. And they understand that. Everybody's very clear. If they're not done with the wall panels and sunshades by October 30th, the same thing. So I think the compromise is good that we gave them sort of credit for the tough work conditions that they had that caused some backups with the contractors. But now we gave you plenty of extra time. There can't be the complaint that you had weather and other things interrupt. So that's been shared with them. It's been documented with them in a letter from our project manager and project team to the contractor. Contractor understands it, and we've made some great progress since that meeting.
Okay.
Which is really good.
Good. And it
So-
looks like even with this, there's still not gonna be sort of like restricted access to any areas of the school playground, parking lot. Does it look like we're gonna be able to?
The staging area was the middle of the parking lot
Yeah.
previously. You can see they've moved to the back area of the parking lot to open up our lot for people to park.
People to park,
Because
yeah.
We're gonna have 100 staff people and
Yeah.
parents and buses on campus next week, so that was one thing. Certainly, we've talked about what they can and can't do. They can be on the roof. Will there be some disruption? Yes.
Okay.
Can they be doing the wall panels and sunshades? The sunshades, no.
Okay.
Not during school time. That involves like drilling holes into I-beams right outside of classrooms.
Yeah, it'd be loud.
Exceptionally loud, exceptionally
The kids will be watching that
interrupting. They won't be able to hear themselves think.
I think any human would be
So that
watching
will
what's
happen
going on.
from 3 p.m. till dark,
Okay.
or Saturdays and Sundays.
Okay.
The wall panels, I told them they could start putting them up, but that Mr. Glazier and myself and Mr. Shaw will be monitoring very closely, and if it is too distracting, I'm going to have to shut them down.
Okay.
And again, they understand
Okay.
what that means. We also want to make sure that things are in place in terms of safety. We have
Yep.
heavy equipment, we have
Yep.
workers, we have all sorts of stuff happening. So they are very restricted, particularly during arrival and dismissal. They are not to be working during arrival and dismissal with buses and parent drop-off and just the activity. Ensuring that we have access to the facilities, so, kids can get out to the playground for recess and cross the parking lot over by the tennis court for recess, that our athletic teams can get to the fields
Yep.
without being put in an unsafe situation. We will be giving the staff the heads up. This is a construction project. Construction sites in general have safety concerns more than non-construction safe sites. So for example, they had to pull out about 1 million nails from the old roof. I mean, literally 1 million nails were
Yeah.
pulled. They had a guy full-time with what looks like a vacuum cleaner, but it's actually a magnet, a heavy-duty magnet to pick up stuff. Did they get every nail? No.
Yeah, so you gotta be careful.
We have to be, as staff, aware of what we're letting kids do. Going outside and sitting outside, like many of our teachers like to do in September, it's probably not going to be possible.
Right.
And if it is possible, what's on the ground?
Yeah, be
Making
conscientious.
sure we don't want kids sitting on an old rusty nail or stepping in one on one. But those are all we can do is continue to remind teachers to make sure that things are safe as they can make it, and not put people in, if they're at all uncomfortable, don't go there. Don't do that. Call the office, ask for help on what they should be doing. Certainly looking at, all the other things we need to think about. We're in the process of doing that, and communicating obviously with Mr. Glazier, but with Mr. Evans too, because it has an impact on the high school. So we will certainly be monitoring the contractor and the work very closely. What I was very clear about is we can't have the educational process so disrupted that the teaching and learning can't happen. There's going to be some disruption.
There will
There's
be.
going to be, trucks going by, and they're cool to look at. The lifts and the guys climbing up ladders. So kids are going to be distracted to some degree. But, as much information as they can give us, if they're working in this space and this was a classroom for the morning, can we reassign that classroom to the makerspace or the computer lab or another room so that teaching and learning can happen uninterrupted or less interrupted than it would be. So it's about communication. But
And
it's,
I'm pretty sure you, in your latest email, you did mention about limiting construction during drop-off and pickup.
Yes.
I'm sure you mentioned that because I'm
Yeah.
sure parents will have a question about that.
Yeah, so between 7 and 8:30, they shouldn't be out there working. And between 1:55 and 2:45, they shouldn't be out there working. Those are the busiest times. Yes, 7 a.m. is when the high school teachers and then buses and parents start to roll in, but it's one way in, one way out of our campus. So it's not just an elementary issue at that point, it's a K-12 issue, pre-K to 12 issue. They can't be here and not impact the high school for drop-off and pickup. So I've told them we can't be working during those times. Put all your tools down, take a break. Let everybody get in and out safely. So that's it, the roof project update, and we'll have plenty more on that. It looks great, so if you're on campus, check it out. Lots of stuff is happening. It's starting to get there. All right, so next I have a couple of things, just kind of FYIs. Love you to review them and give me any feedback as you get it. But we've talked about these two things before. The first is during last year, we worked with our support staff union to develop an evaluation tool and a process for our secretaries, food services workers, instructional assistants, and our ABA techs, our ABA people. And what you have here is, because we have a contract with them, we'd have to have a side letter. We've essentially agreed with the committee that developed this tool that this will be the evaluation tool for year one, and of course we'll look at it at the end of year one and say, how did it go, what worked, what didn't. But this has to be voted on by their union. So prior to asking you to sign, they need to vote.
Okay.
So in the September meeting, hopefully they will have done that and gone through with their union and had a vote. And then it would come to you for approval. Essentially, what you see here is just a side letter that describes the process by which evaluation will happen and the actual tool that we've agreed on. Again, it was designed for 4 different job categories: food services secretaries, instructional assistants, and ABAs. I'm just going to close this because plugs are flying.
Just waiting for something.
Not gonna get eaten by this anymore, sorry.
Yeah.
So, I don't need feedback right away, but if you have a chance to review it, if you have any thoughts, before we get to, obviously, me getting to ask you to vote, and before the union actually votes on it, it would be good to make sure that we're all on the same page. I'll be sharing this with Mr. Surratt, the president of their association, in the next week or so. So any feedback you can get to me as soon as possible would be great. And when this contract runs out, these side letters actually get put into the contract,
yeah.
so it will become another thing. The second side letter is with the same group. Remember last year we talked about the food services director and an assistant?
Yep.
And I presented at the end of last year a plan to create a stipend. And this would be a side letter to establish those stipends with 2 job descriptions, because they would be yearly stipends that every year would have to be applied for. And again, I have to share this with Mr. Surratt, and then they have to vote, the union has to vote on it. But again, I wanted to share it with you. Just as a reminder, our food services director position, when we shared it with Quabog, was scheduled this year for, I believe, $40,000 investment.
Okay.
When we shifted to Mrs. Ryan, Mrs. Holmes, doing it last year, and they did it on an hourly wage, which is something that they helped us out with, that
Yes.
they're not interested in doing again.
Yep.
This is more representative of the appropriate pay for the position
Okay.
and the work they'll be doing. And just frankly, the way I established this, I looked at the previous director's hourly rate,
Yep.
and that's what I used for the time they would be doing work
Okay.
outside of their
Good.
typical job.
Okay.
Establish some job descriptions. And again, any feedback on this prior to me sending it to Mr. Surratt would be most helpful. Again, I'll be maybe sending it to him at the end of the week, like Friday,
Okay.
so he can prepare accordingly. But any feedback would be great.
Thank you.
And that, I think, covers my report.
Thanks very much. Moving on to the administrators' reports, Mr. Evans.
Thank you. So I just have a couple of items, just mentioning that the start of school, much of which you've heard. Obviously, we're ready to go next Wednesday. I did include in the packet and have been circulating the new rotation of periods that we have to use this year. We're sharing 3 staff with the elementary school, so the goal is to try and, rotate the periods within the schedule so that you don't always have the same class first, you don't always have the same class last. But in sharing staff, it's really difficult to rotate the periods and expect teachers to be able to be in both buildings, since their schedule at the high school would change day to day. So we crafted a schedule that minimizes the rotations, still do some of it, but managed to keep the schedules for those shared staff reasonable and within the contract bounds of the contract. So it worked out well, except A block is first a lot and G block is last a lot, and I'm not crazy about that, but that's well worth it in terms of what we gain staffing wise. So I wanted to point that out. It was mentioned earlier, the half-day orientation for 7th graders on Friday, 8 to 12 in the morning. Looking forward to that. It should be a lot of fun for the kids. Anything run by student council is usually a lot of fun. So I think that'll be great. I do want to just highlight some new staff that are coming in. We have a new math teacher. His name is Greg Jackson. And of course, Jay Mooney, we're welcoming him back. Dan Reardon has been in the district for a while. He's actually worked in the high school for a period of time some years ago. He'll be coming back and doing a couple of health classes for us. Sarah Priestley has moved across the street and now is moving back. Will be our 7th and 8th grade, mostly 7th grade English teacher.
She's got a lot of stuff too.
She does. Ralph Kay is our new athletic director. He started this evening with the parent meeting for the fall sports. Freddie O'Malley, who worked in this district for many, many years and retired from North Brookfield, has agreed to come back to cover the maternity leave for Laura Cummins through December. So we're happy to have Freddie back. We are very close to hiring a new instrumental band teacher, as our previous teacher took a job in another district, and we are also looking at hiring some new paraprofessional staff for our Connect program, hopefully all of which will be done this week, he says.
I heard you had some great candidates for the band director position,
We did.
right?
Yep, we're very excited. So not finalized yet, but we hope to have that wrapped up in a day or two.
Can you just tell me the athletic director's position? Are they like part teacher, part athletic director?
The athletic director has almost always been somebody that was internal to the building. It's a stipended position.
Okay.
So this year we did not have anybody that was interested in taking it. So we had to advertise outside.
Okay.
Ralph is well qualified.
Yep.
He's a teacher in another district, but
Okay.
his afternoons get freed up.
Okay.
And I think it'll work out.
So it's still the stipend position? Okay.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Great, I'm done. Thank you.
Mr. Shaw left us, but he did a great, didn't leave us, he left us for the evening, sorry. He's still
went on.
around, doing a
He's
great
still
job.
here.
He gave us a little tour prior to our official meeting here, and the schools look wonderful. And he did mention that with the elementary school, it's a little bit challenging this year because of the roof project, but he and his staff have done a great job. They said they're just a couple days behind, but they are positive that they will catch up by the beginning of the year. And I think that's all, really. And Mr. Glazier.
Thank you. I'd like to just echo what you said. I'd like to thank the custodial staff for working as hard as they do, and I think Mr. Evans would agree. They put all their effort and focus in the summer into cleaning the two buildings, and every staff, night staff and day staff, come together to work on that, and it's a huge project. They go room by room. Everybody has a task, and it's amazing to watch them work. They're a really great team, so they're very close to being finished, even with the setbacks, so I'm really excited about that. So just want to thank the custodial staff. I'd also just really like to thank Ms. Powers for helping me with the master schedule this year. I was out sick for a few weeks early in the summer, and I came back and it was done. And I'm just really thankful for that, because it was a huge project that I was not necessarily looking forward to. So we've revamped our schedule. We've taken a really close look at time on learning. We've really focused on consistent blocks. We're giving teachers prep time to work together, which we really haven't done before. It's kind of been hit or miss. So teachers are now going to have some common planning time, which is really amazing. And as I said, Jean was able to negotiate a schedule that really worked for everybody, and I really appreciate that. I would also just like to point out that several of our staff attended workshops over the summer. I hope I'm not stepping on. Okay. Mr. O'Neill, Mr. Shelburne, Mr. Buke attended science and math professional development over the summer. So they attended some workshops. There was a math workshop in Boston, and there was a science workshop at WPI. So they are out there engaging in curriculum with other colleagues around the state. I feel like they're becoming in-house experts in some of these areas, and I'm going to turn to some of those teachers to train the rest of the staff. I feel like that's a model that we really need to focus on, and I know Mr. Lind has talked about that as the train-the-trainer model, using our staff to provide professional development for others. It's a low-cost way to provide really high-quality professional development, so I'm excited about the workshops that they've attended over the summer. Regarding my new staff, I was only able to report on a couple of new staff. Those names are listed in my report for this month. I'm going to have many new staff, but it's still a work in progress. We've had some late resignations. We've had some folks that we liked for positions and weren't able to commit to coming. So I am still actively working on that, and I plan to make a full report on that at the September meeting. And I'm going to try to invite a few of those staff to come and meet you in the September meeting as well. But I wish I could report as Mr. Evans did on new hires, but it's still a work in progress for me. But I anticipate confidently in the next couple of days to have every position filled, so been working on it nonstop for the last week and a half, so.
I know, I would love to get an email, kind of like right maybe before this first day of
Sure.
schoolish, to know who's coming in and filling
You
what
bet.
and what's open.
You bet, I will.
Great.
And yeah, and possibly as early as Friday, like I'd love to get
Okay.
that to you guys by Friday. That's my goal.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do that.
So, it says, and I knew this, the having a kindergarten open house on Friday, August 31st. Do you know exactly what time that is?
We have been telling people 1 o'clock, because I think that's what the teachers, I think that's what we agreed to with Mrs. Ahern and Miss Buzzle.
Okay.
I think what we agreed was 1 to 2, meet in the library to do a question and answer session previous to that, and then do a quick classroom tour. So it'll be a short, brief open house just to give folks an opportunity to see the classroom. Thursday evening, following the last day of screenings, the classroom teachers will call. They're going to make the classroom groups Thursday night or Thursday after school, and then they're going to call Thursday evening with their classroom assignments, so that the parents will know who the teachers are going to be, so that when they come back from the open house, they'll have a chance to meet the teacher and visit the classroom their child will be in. So that'll occur Thursday night, and then the open house is Friday.
And then there's a couple of real important orientations for other orientations for the kindergartners this week, right? Like the bus ride and.
Yes, so there's a bus ride from, I believe it was 10 to noon. It's an open house, so you can go at any point during that open house, and they're doing 15-minute interval bus rides, so the kids can get a chance to ride the bus if they've never done that. Parents can ask questions of the bus company. If you're new to town, you can get your name on the bus list. I definitely would recommend calling the bus company if you don't go Wednesday. Let them know that you're new to town so they can add you to the stop. And then Wednesday at the town library, if the time escapes me, there is
I think it's at 1.
1 o'clock, there is a free activity for incoming kindergartens. It's a sing-along and a book. I don't have the flyer in front of me.
I think it's CFC, I think they do it
Yeah,
every
yeah.
year.
The early childhood group that's in town is hosting it, and it's the theme is for incoming kindergarten students, and I think there's a presenter as well.
And then on Sunday, our PTO has something as well.
Yes, I'd have to look up the time.
What does PTO have
So
on Sunday?
PTO is
No, the
doing
time on that, yeah, it's a meet and greet,
at
yes.
2 p.m.
2 o'clock. Thank
at
you.
the school
On the
playground, I think, right?
Yep.
And I think they're going to have freeze pops,
Yes.
possibly.
Meet, like,
Yep.
just.
I'll
That's
be
why I
there.
committed, freeze pops.
Yeah, well, I think
Because
it's,
you gotta
gotta
have
have
some
some.
freeze
I think it
pops.
was the idea behind is, I don't know, I think the teachers were invited, but Mr. Lind is going to be there, huh?
I don't
I'm
know.
gonna be there.
Yep.
Is
I'm
that
planning to
for
be
all
there, yeah.
students? Or
No,
is that
it's more for, it would seem to aim more at the kindergarten, so,
Kindergarten and preschool. I think.
right, so you can meet the other kids, the other parents, sort of.
What about
Thank
any
you.
like open house or orientation for like meet the teacher for any other grade levels?
Nothing is set in stone. I know we had discussed there's going to be the math night for the upper elementary school in September. I'd have to go back and look at the calendar. There are only a handful of dates that the staff can stay in the evenings, and I don't recall if we did a traditional open house last year or not.
No, you didn't.
We did.
But I will, consult with the staff on the first day and see if that's something we want to look at doing, maybe early October. I know when we do parent-teacher conferences, some of those go into the evenings, so that counts as one of the evening activities. And then, but I can certainly, on the first day, I'll consult with staff and see if they want to try to do an open house. I know those are popular, but not always well attended, so it's kind of hit or miss sometimes with the open houses, but would certainly be willing to look into that.
Well, I will say that, I want to say all the elementary schools in the area, to my knowledge, do an open house, and I understand there's a challenge there with the way that the contract is written. It would be great to have that as a regular thing.
So if you're a parent who wants to meet their
Sure.
student's teacher, what do you recommend?
All teachers are emailers. I don't know if they'd be willing to, in those first couple of days, set something up if parents wanted to come and say hello if they haven't met the teacher before. Teachers are here Monday and Tuesday, but it's, we're full with meetings and professional development, maybe a little bit of time later in the afternoon. I would say reach out to them by email and see if they'd be willing to set something up. you know, it is a tough time to
Yeah.
try to do a meet and greet for staff, but,
Okay,
yeah, I'll make a note to try to do,
thank you.
look at open house, yep.
And our new addition to administration here, our interim, I'm gonna get it wrong again, interim director of student services. Yeah, there you go.
That's right.
All right, I got
Right
it.
on.
Yeah.
Monique Dubuque, go ahead.
Thank you. So obviously right now I'm focused on, getting acclimated, going through old emails, going through the inbox and, some things that were left from June, returning phone calls from the week that, Greg was out and before I had started, reading through IEPs, going over cases that have gone to mediation, kind of just figuring out who the players are outside involved in that, kind of learning where things were left, and then kind of figuring out how I'm going to pick them back up. The district gave me a mentor, which I started with today. So she's been great. She's from the SWEC community. She's the executive director, so she has a lot of insight. She used to work here, so she knows the community. So I was kind of running through some things with her today, revamping, the systems and structures within the office with Melody Spence, preparing for the new staff coming in, and kind of creating a training and a process that's kind of streamlined, that works for, people at the high school, people at the elementary school. And then I've been working on the training presentation for the new staff during the mentor days this week, and then, rolling out the information on the DCAP and the RTI and social emotional curriculum, kind of building all of that along with the work that Jean's been doing, and just kind of organizing, the presentation to the start of the year and kind of starting everyone off on the same vision. And then some goals going forward throughout the year, like I spoke about before and on the tour this morning a little bit, kind of expanding our cafe programs, really enhancing the meaning behind our programs for our students and kind of building those to a higher potential, and then kind of revamping the staff, because we have a lot of turnover, so kind of figuring out the best fit for who's going to be best suited in which positions, and getting their training situated, and the safety care. So kind of just getting things in line, and
So kind of a lot.
a lot, yeah, but it's all coming together, and we want to start off the school year strong and on the same page, so that's my focus this month.
So one of your possible goals is creating a Facebook page for your department, which I think is an awesome idea.
Yeah, I mean, everyone else has one, so
It's not fair.
why shouldn't sped, right? So yeah, I definitely want to do that, kind of get the word out. One of my visions is to bring in the community a little bit more, kind of highlight and showcase a lot more of what our SPED staff and students are doing and achieving, to bring in, some helping hands. So I think the Facebook page would be kind of one step to doing that. So, yeah.
So as Monique mentioned, we work with Beth Fitzmaurice. Beth is the executive director of the Collaborative,
Very good.
Southern Worcester County Collaborative. Beth was actually the special education director here when Aaron Nozek was the superintendent.
Yeah. Okay.
She knows this community. Beth still has a pretty strong reputation here in our district, positive reputation for the work that she did. I've known Beth outside. She actually worked in Franklin, where my sister is a speech and language pathologist, and just sort of you get to know people in education. And it's just a
Small
strange
world.
world. Yeah. Beth is smart. She knows her stuff, and I think it'll be a good match for Monique to have someone to complain about me when
It's all good,
when I'm a pain in the
yes.
neck, to be able to go to someone who's
Yes.
sort of not on staff and outside, and it's hers.
Yep.
She can go and vent and say,
Yep.
"Gosh, why is Rich a pain in the neck?"
Problem solved, yeah.
and figure out how to get around whatever I'm asking her to do or whatever.
Sounds good.
So I think it'll be good.
Okay. Ms. Powers?
Thank you.
Last but not least.
Yes. So one of the big projects that I've been working on this summer, as you saw, was a STEM classroom at the elementary school, which is a makerspace. And a makerspace is really a place where students and teachers can go and create and build and design and experiment. And our STEM teacher at the elementary school, Jay Mooney, will be leading specific STEM classes for all elementary school students. But when he's not teaching, he's over at the high school, that room will be a space for teachers to also use. So it's been a lot of fun shopping and figuring out the best tools and curriculum for the makerspace. So it's on its way. And then kind of within what Monique was talking about as far as the new teachers are coming in for a 2-day orientation, Wednesday and Thursday of this week. So as Monique stepped into the interim director of student services position, she thought it was best to kind of pass on the mentor coordinator role, and so Sarah Priestley is going to be the mentor coordinator. So between Monique and Sarah and myself, we've kind of put together the orientation, and so the new teachers will be here. They'll get to go through, meet all the administrators, the teachers union representatives are going to talk with them, and they'll get a chance to meet their mentors. So all the mentors are coming in for a 1-hour training, and that training kind of concludes the summer online training that they've had. So we developed a module where they do things, whether it's reading articles or watching videos, and then they would do some sort of activity and they would submit it back to us. So they did the training over the summer, and then we'll have Monique's going to lead a 1-hour kind of let's get the school year started, and then they'll have about almost 2 hours with their mentee, the new people they're working with. So they'll get some really good time to ask those questions they might not be ready to ask, the administration or. So that's kind of the main focus this week. Really is getting the new teachers in and ready to go.
Very good.
So can I add quickly one, for the community, we will be and have through the newsletter that I sent out today, and we will through Facebook, be looking for your help with the makerspace in terms of donations and there's lots of stuff that you'll be able to donate. We'll get you more information, but anything from old Legos to, paper towel and toilet paper rolls to egg cartons to just a lot of different materials that we're going to need for the makerspace. So look for that and start saving stuff like that.
Clean stuff.
Clean stuff.
Yeah. Yes.
Second, I just want to sort of highlight the mentor training. This is not something we purchased. This is something that Jean and Monique put together from scratch, from many different mentor training materials and resources. This is something they built and probably could market if they really were going forward with that. It's amazing, the different modules that our mentors who are working with our brand new teachers will be doing, and that's really important work. Mentor programs retain more teachers over the longer term. They serve as professional development for both the new teacher and the mentors. Excuse me. It was amazing work that they did. And certainly, school committee, if you have time on Wednesday or Thursday and wanted to stop by, we will be in the Kiva mostly.
Yeah, at the high school.
I will be there for a little while in and out. We'll have some lunch. We'll welcome everybody, but Jean and Monique and Sarah will be essentially doing the yeoman's work with all our new teachers.
What time on Thursday?
So Wednesday and Thursday, it's all day from 8:30 to 2:30. And we do lunch from 11:30 to 12:30 each day. So if you're around at that time, the first day all the administrators are eating lunch with the new staff, and then the second day all the mentors and all the new staff are eating together. So it could be a good time to stop in.
Thank you.
I have a question. What does the STEM program look like at the high school?
So right now we already have a number of classes, engineering, some of the project design classes, but with having another teacher adding classes, we're going to be building more, whether it's like computer science, robotics, more kind of elective classes at the upper levels. In the basement, the old wood shop is it's an innovation. It's a design studio, and I'm also working with Jay Mooney to he's purchasing additional supplies for that space as well. So kind of here, there wasn't a lot of existing, and so there's been a lot of push into this building, where over there it's more refining some of the things that we already have and building upon it.
And providing our middle school students with more opportunities in STEM. Because our high school, most of our kids, their first real experience was high school in STEM, which is just unacceptable in 2018. So this year it's really about the elementary school and middle school, and as we move forward, the high school to expand opportunities.
So is the middle school, is it almost like a special, or is it like?
Similar.
It's an elective.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's an 8th grade elective. It runs.
That all
same
kids
time
elect
as
to
art
take?
band. No,
Okay, only some kids?
they could choose if
Okay,
that art or band.
okay,
Um,
okay.
Is
How
it
many
something?
kids do you have taking it?
I think the 8th grade number is 15-ish.
Okay,
There is also a 9th grade section of engineering.
okay,
There's an upper level section of engineering, which is actually going to be working alongside the 9th graders as mentors,
okay,
while they also work on individual projects.
okay.
Is it possible to do something as I forget, did the 7th graders do the studios, or is that just the 9th through 12th?
Everybody does studios.
Okay.
There's a robotics studio,
Yeah,
as well as the robotics team.
Right.
So there's 2 places where kids get to go down and play.
playground.
Well, I was just curious if it was something that you could do a studio using the, I mean, you have the robotics, which is great, another.
Yeah, something.
Yeah,
it's
they
definitely
used the space at that time. There's only so many
Sure, okay.
nooks and crannies in there.
Curious.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Moving on. So, we have our superintendent's evaluation actually for the 2017-2018 school year, and thanks for giving us an extra month or 2. So,
Who's better at it this year?
yeah, just taking our time. So, just, we rated Mr. Lind as proficient, and just a few highlights of our evaluation. For instance, the first standard is instructional leadership, and sorry, that's number 2. Sorry, no special comments on that one, I'm sorry. The second standard, management and operations, and just that very important in every school system, I imagine, but particularly North Brookfield, that you took a conservative approach to the budget last year. You also established management systems that allow for greater communication and transparency for all the stakeholders regarding the school. In the third standard, which is family and community engagement, and I know personally this is something that almost every parent who has spoken to me about you mentioned, was that the communication, weekly communication, and that in particular when there are family and community concerns, you address them quickly and efficiently and with a diplomatic approach. And, of course, the tragic situation we had last fall with the death of a student was dealt with very sensitively, and understanding the care that both the staff and the students and the families needed. And the standard for number 4 is the professional culture. Shown a really high commitment to high standards, from the maintenance of the school grounds to instituting the new mentor program, to working on updating the bullying and intervention plans, and implementing the federally required wellness policy. So we appreciate your work here, and we look forward to working with you, hopefully for many more years.
One of the things that I'd like to just kind of highlight about the evaluation is, I think that, and I really want to convey to parents, is that I think Mr. Lind does an excellent job being approachable by students, approachable for us, to parents, and I think that's something that's really worth highlighting, is that if somebody has something that's going really well and they want to share it with you, or something that's a concern, I think your door is open and you're willing to talk with them and work through anything that comes up. And so I think that's huge, and I would like to highlight that, and I appreciate that.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any other committee members have any specific?
Love that weekly update.
Yes,
The
right?
communication is great.
Oh, yeah.
So if there's a vote,
Okay,
you know,
all right.
Motion to accept the evaluation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
so we do have 2 official copies that we have to sign off on. One is going to be mine, and one goes to my personnel file, just so the community knows. We didn't know what to put in there with that, so I got to sign the other one too.
Okay.
Do you want us all to sign it?
Sure. It's just Willis's evaluator. Thank you to Meg for doing the bulk of the work. I appreciate her support with her experience there. So. Okay. Oops. Moved it backwards.
We'll figure it out.
My signature and my print were pretty much the same. Today's the 20th, right?
Yeah, and I think we all just really appreciate how proactive you've been, especially, you know, if anything has come up, any of the incidents that have occurred, you know, we've heard them from you first, rather than finding out on Facebook or the news or something, you know, so, you know, you're very on top of things, which we appreciate.
Organization that follows through.
Yeah. Oh, do we all sign it, or?
Pass that down.
Oh.
Do you want me to keep going while people sign, or?
Sure,
something?
yep, sure.
Other
Yes,
nice things
please.
people want to say, I'm open. No, I appreciate the positive feedback. You know, I don't want to hear things for the first time from someone other than, you know, staff or administrators. And, you know, we owe you that same courtesy to make sure you're in the loop. So we'll continue to communicate the way we have, but hopefully improve it.
So you have a policy review recommendations for
Well-
the upcoming year?
Yes.
We did a lot last year.
So we did a ton last year, but we have a ton left. So what I tried to do was put together something that made sense in terms of, based on the work we did last year. Certainly the whole committee, but Ms. Clear and Mrs. Tucker and I really kind of steamed through the policies to get them ready for the whole committee to look at. So what I wanted to do was make sure that we sort of wrapped up some of the sections that we began, but kind of touched on, but didn't do the whole thing. So, for example, some policies from Section A, a couple of policies from Section E, a few policies from Section K, and then Section D is really about the finances, and I thought that would be really important to sort of wrap up. Particularly, one of our audits came in on our activity accounts, and they were they really wanted us to get to gosh, which one was it? I think it was policy DI, fiscal accounting and reporting.
Okay.
They wanted that updated.
Okay.
And then the remaining policy sections that need to be done are very long. So it would be Section B. It would be Section, I believe, I, and Section J that are the remaining sections. They all have significant number of policies, like 30 or 40 policies that have to be reviewed. So what I did was I took Section B, because it was just next,
Okay.
and took care of that. That one, and broke it into two. I think there's 41 policies in Section B.
Oh, well.
So I broke it in half.
Okay.
Do 21 and then 21 in the second part. So essentially it's 3, because we have to do 3 readings. So it's 3 sort of meetings, 3 groups of 3 meetings, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So, you know, if you look at the first section, it's, you know, first reading in September, second reading in October, third reading in November, and the policies that are listed, starting with AA and ending with DJG. Policies we actually have to remove. And then that would complete all of section A, D, E, and K. They would be completed.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And then the second one would be half of section B for December, January, February, starting with BA and ending with BEDA. And then the third and final thing that would do, start with March, April, and May would be the second half of the B section, starting with BBA and ending with BK. That would leave, I'm sorry, 3 sections to go. Sections G, which is personnel, I, which is instruction, and J, which is students, which are very long. They're all 40 or 50 policies long.
Okay.
And we can decide how we want to attack those in 2020. But we began this process with the idea of getting through every policy. We took a big chunk last year. This will certainly take another big chunk and leave us with only 3 sections that need to be updated.
We can start all over again.
Well, then it becomes 1 section a year as opposed to
Yes,
doing,
everything.
you know,
Yes. Yep.
The entire
however
policy
many
book.
sections.
Yep.
And having the most current language, and as I mentioned, I think over the summer at some point, the policy book is now live on the website. Faculty, staff, school committee, parents, guardians can access all the policies in a very simple way, sorry. But again, I'm open to suggestions. I don't want to do too much, but I certainly don't want to do too little. If we're going to do these policies next, I believe you are going to remain on policy.
Yep, and Mrs. DePass
Yep.
has volunteered to step up,
DePass.
and Mrs. Cloutier is stepping down.
You know, we can maybe communicate, the 3 of us, about looking at this group of policies. Maybe I'll get them together for you, get them out. We can start reading through them and see if the language, it's the MASC language, so it's not, you know, this isn't rocket science. It's pulling from their website and then seeing if it fits what we want to do. And if we want to make any changes, additions, deletions to the MASC model policy. And then we'll bring it to the September meeting. We have a month to get that. So if that makes sense, we can do that.
Sure.
And the policy subcommittee, you know, other than this first meeting, then we can schedule meetings just prior to the school committee meetings as needed. You know, as we're ready for the next group, we can get together and look at it. Because there's 3 readings, we have time to make edits after the first reading. And
Right.
the committee says we
Right.
want to change this, then we
Right.
can change it. So I think it's making sure we have everything we want in there to start, and then following the will of the committee from there.
I think it's a good way to break it down.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes
I think
sense.
it'll make it
Very organized. Yeah.
And
Again,
I
it's
have to say
long.
that MASC was extremely helpful.
Extremely
Yeah.
helpful.
So, yeah, and again, I went through all this trying
Yeah,
to
right.
figure out, I don't want to leave, you know, those few, whatever, 4A policies undone.
Yeah.
No,
I really
no,
wanted to
yeah,
wrap
yeah,
those
yeah,
up
yeah,
and make
right.
sure
Yeah,
everything was in
just
there.
That makes
Done.
sense.
Yep.
The policies from E, that we didn't do, free and reduced price and meal charge policy.
Yep.
Meal charge policy could become law
Yep.
with the next session of the legislature in
Okay.
terms of that. So it's really important, these
Yep.
things, to get them done. The only thing I would ask Mrs. Cloutier for help is policy KF, was
Yeah.
the community use
Yes.
of school facilities that
Yes.
that the committee in some past date
Yep. Had worked on.
but we're not sure where all the
Yeah.
documentation is.
Yeah.
And you had found a bunch of stuff, so
I did find some things, yeah.
I would
did.
ask you to,
Absolutely.
to help us with that one, since you seem to have whatever contextual knowledge exists in your head.
Okay.
Or on
I'll
paper
do my
that you
best.
have.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
we can certainly adjust that as needed.
Yeah, I think it's, it'll be great.
Sounds like a
Good.
good plan of attack.
And then we get to new business. In your packet is a letter from Mr. May, who is the Executive Director of the Valley View School, along with a memo that I asked him to attach on their curriculum. He's proposed he would like the committee to approve. I think I put the entire document. If I didn't, I will. If you do want to check out their entire curriculum, but they do need your approval. The majority is unchanged. They did do some new things, like they added Spanish 4. They've updated their phys ed program. They've updated Spanish 1 and Spanish 2 and Spanish 3. But the majority is unchanged. World literature was updated. So he had teachers doing summer curriculum work, and the majority is very much as it existed, other than the changes represented in the attached memo to this letter. And I had a great conversation with Mr. May.
Very good, very good. Motion to approve the Valley View curriculum submitted for 2018-19.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So, also in the Dropbox, and I didn't kill a whole forest for the school handbook. I put the whole handbook in the Dropbox, so hopefully you had a chance. I just put the front cover in there. But I will, at this point, turn it over to Mr. Evans to maybe highlight any changes for you.
So there is a document in the administrator's folder of the Dropbox that highlights 3 changes, or 2 additions and 1 change. The 2 additions are the student-led conferences are added to the parent night section. So it says parents' night and student-led conferences, so since we really do 2 different things, one in the fall and one in the spring. The other addition is the studios, which we've talked about here. That was not in the handbook. I think we've done it a couple years now and feel like it deserves a place, so that parents can understand what that's about. And then the bigger change really is to our tobacco policy. And in the document that I shared some data, some recent data about the increased use of vaping devices, e-cigarettes, not just statewide really. And we certainly saw an increase. I think we had 20 incidents last year that were entered into the discipline record, which would indicate, probably double, maybe more, in terms of things that we never got. We never caught. So I'm very concerned about that trend. I'm very concerned about the health of our kids. So the previous policy was a bit cumbersome. The first offense was 5 after-school detentions. And then the second offense was a prescribed 5-hour course on smoking cessation. I think that is, so it assumed a certain accessibility to that type of a course, and it said, it had stuff about fines and payment for not doing the course. And again, very difficult to use. Most of the kids that were in this predicament, were free and reduced students often, and I really wasn't about to start fining kids X number of dollars a day for attending a course or not attending a course. So I had several concerns. One, the detentions for having a device in school I felt was not an appropriate response. And 2, I really wanted to have an education piece, but I wanted to make it a little more fluid and a little more user-friendly for myself and the school nurse. So the new language indicates that a first offense would have a minimum of 1 day external suspension from school and mandatory viewing of an educational video to be provided by the school nurse. A second offense would have a minimum 3-day external or combination external and internal suspension and mandatory attendance of smoking cessation class to be provided by the school nurse. I really didn't want to say it needed to be X number of hours and it needed to be done on this day. I really wanted to be where the nurse and myself could figure out what it is that this particular student needed and provide information in a format that was going to work for them. So I wanted some of that flexibility. And last, the subsequent offenses, of course, all of these include parent notification. Minimum 5-day external or combination internal and external suspension, and mandatory parent meeting with student principal and school nurse to develop a cessation strategy. So at that point, I think if you have three incidents during one school year, really we need to create a team and talk about how we're going to, at that point it's not just, I want to see if I can get away with this. The student has an issue, there's an addiction to the nicotine probably, and we really can't be just not dealing with that as an issue with the parent, with the nurse, with myself, and looking at it as a health problem for the student. So that's the new language that that I'm including in the handbook this year. It stiffens the penalties a little bit, which I think was long overdue, but also beefs up and makes the education piece a little more flexible.
Is there some concern with the vaping in terms of not necessarily knowing what students are vaping, right? So they have this device, it could be not necessarily tobacco, and so there's, I feel like these sort of penalties are a little steeper, but at the same time, I think when you're dealing with something like vaping, it sort of
I do mention,
number of things.
Yeah, I do mention in the new document or the update document that a number of schools are looking at vaping devices as they can deliver THC in them. So they're looking at them as drug paraphernalia. This puts this more in line with our marijuana policy. Not quite as severe, but certainly it goes to the level of suspension instead of detention. I think the first offense is 3 to 5 days for marijuana. Actually, it's 10 days for marijuana.
Okay.
So it's not quite severe, but you're right. We don't always know. Kids don't always know. And so it's definitely, and it has become very, very popular.
Yeah.
So the tobacco policy was updated by the school committee in 2016, and it does talk about vaping devices and electronic cigarettes and those kinds of devices. So the language that Mr. Evans and his staff included is in line with the school committee policy. Certainly the level in terms of, the days are arbitrary. Yeah, just about any sort of how many detentions, how many suspension days. You try to make it in line with other potential violations. And based on its frequency and how impactful it is. And this is a growing, if you follow it at all, the Attorney General's involved now and very worried. Many schools and districts are seeking what can we do about this? Not just in terms of consequences, but the education.
So those are the updates, as well as the, when does marking term end, bless you, when does, staffing updates, all the dates kinds of stuff. Names and dates, yes.
Okay, very good.
So I think we need a motion.
Motion to approve the junior senior high school student handbook.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we'll be bringing the elementary one in September.
Okay.
Lastly, we have a number of donations again, one of which we saw a little bit earlier on our tour. So we have 5 different donations that were made after our last meeting in June. Excuse me. First one is a baby grand piano. As I said, Mr. Glowsley, whose wife, Paula Slade, volunteers here, and they have donated the 2nd grade field trip. This is just a very important family to the North Brookfield Public Schools. They are downsizing their home and called me asked if we would be interested in a baby grand piano. I contacted our music teachers, and they were like, absolutely. We did have to pay to get it moved, because it's not
Right.
something.
Can't put it in your back of your pickup.
Yeah, you can't just go and pick it up. It's obviously a very, you know, fragile, I don't know, but it's a specialty thing to move a piano, which we covered, of course. And, so that's the first one.
That's great.
Motion to approve the donated baby grand piano from Barry Gilligley and Paula Slade.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So,
Go
do
ahead.
you want to just do the rest of them?
Sure.
Okay, so we had 2 from the PTO. They donated $293.15 for books for the library, which is great.
Very good.
And also their annual donation for new blinds, $1,200. Do we know which classroom this was?
I don't. Do you know?
Offhand, I do not know where they're up to.
So they're slowly making their way. I
Yes.
think we're up like towards 4th or 5th grade.
We are, we're getting
There
there.
you go.
And Parsons Auto donated $300 to the Nature's Classroom, which is great because that's the cost of one whole kid
Wow.
right there.
Wow.
And then also very nicely, Mary's Nails and Skincare donated $25 and as well. So all of those are gratefully received.
Very gratefully received.
Yeah, it's-
Absolutely.
Just a $300 donation, you mentioned it's, you know, the cost of one student, but we've had, you know, out of the 50 families in the incoming 6th grade, I think we're gonna have close to 30-ish families that are gonna attend Nature's Classroom, which is amazing, maybe more, but several families have already asked for financial aid, so we'll be able to take that check and spread it out across several families to be able to provide their child with an opportunity to go. So every donation is huge, but $300 is certainly an amazing donation. We've received several of those across the community.
You've received more donations or more requests, I'm sorry.
No, we've received several Nature's Classroom donations like this one. I think several have already been approved, maybe earlier in the summer.
Oh,
or
okay.
Late at the end of the school year. So we've received some other donations from community members, so,
Oh, great.
yeah.
And I can also say that in particular, one of the parents of the incoming 6th grade, Jennifer Morse, she's raised almost like $2,000. So
Yep.
she's done an awesome job.
For her.
Yep.
Yeah, our
And-
plan is to take, you know, whatever's been donated, fundraised, that last payment the parents would have to make, we're gonna divide that money equally amongst the kids who are going, and just reduce that final payment so that, you know, everybody gets a reduction on their final payment, which is gonna be great. We don't have that number yet. We'll have to wait till kids get back into school, figure out exactly how many kids are going, find out what the exact cost of the trip will be from Nature's Classroom, and then we'll make that final payment, so.
And I just want to add that the parents will be selling Krispy Kremes
Yeah.
this upcoming Saturday, so they're taking pre-orders. I'm happy to pass it along to them, and we'll make sure you get them Monday.
Pre-order Krispy Kreme.
So at $10 a dozen, just
Killing
putting
me.
that out there.
I know.
Or if you live nearby.
We need to do.
Yep, I'm sorry. Yep, so.
Yep.
I got it. Motion
Yeah.
to approve the PTO donation for $293.15 that was used for books for the library. To approve the PTO donation of $1,200 used for new blinds. Parsons Auto, $300 towards Nature's Classroom, and Mary's Nails and Skincare, $25 used towards Nature's Classroom.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I will send off a
Thank you.
thank you letter and card.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And then in terms of recognition, I'm going to mimic what many have said. Our custodial staff is doing yeoman's work in really difficult conditions. We talked about how hot it was on the roof. We were in these buildings trying to wax floors and clean floors, and it was, 110 degrees and just muggy, horrible conditions. But they've really worked hard, and it's much appreciated. And the building looked great, and I know they'll be done.
Very good. They do. The buildings look great. We had a very good walkthrough.
I'm just going to take a second to recognize my fellow school committee members and say thank you for your time serving the town and the students of the school, because you all work, you all have families, and this is an extra thing that you do, and I know that you all do it because you care a lot about education and education for kids, so thank you.
I think we should recognize Maria as well for stepping up as the new chairwoman.
Yes, thank
It's
you.
not an easy role, and certainly it takes a lot, and you have your own family, you know, as well. So, you know, stepping up and filling that role, and, you know, for all that you've done, especially, you know, your years with the PTO and everything.
We're all
You're a
awesome,
valuable
okay?
asset.
Everybody here.
All right, motion to
Everybody's
adjourn.
awesome, all right?
Oh, can I just say, thanks to Mr. Kiley and Mr. Tripp for.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely, yes.
For visiting
Yeah,
us
taking the
tonight,
time,
and doing the
absolutely.
walkthrough.
Yep.
Thank you very much
Yes.
to them for coming.
Yep,
It was great
and
for
bringing
them.
cannolis.
And bringing
Yes.
cannolis.
And I have to say, the staff did a really nice job explaining to them, sharing all the things you've worked hard on. I think it's great to hear from you directly instead of kind of through other people. And you guys explain your programs and your plans and everything you've worked on really well. So thank you for that. It was helpful. Yeah, it was nice that they came. Definitely.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Until next month.